Okay, so I got it back to how it was, and everything's fixed. The problem was that I scaled um, my squash deformers, which when they're created, they automatically come with scale values other than 1. I had forgotten that, and when I set them to 1, it broke it. So now I'm going to do a little hierarchy work real quick. And right now I have the lattice and the lattice base selected. So I'm going to group those. And then I want to select all my deformers. And I'm going to group those. And now I can, when the time comes, I can attach a control to this group 2 node so that I can control my deformers independently of the ball mesh. Okay, so now we have this lattice that we know it can do cool stuff, but we're not really sure how to control it. So here's one way to control it, and that's called the cluster deformer. And so the way a cluster deformer works is you can select components of a mesh or a mesh type object. So in this case, I selected these lattice points. And go to Create Deformer, Cluster. There's not many options for a cluster, okay, even if you went to the Advanced section. And so we can edit those from the channel box. So go ahead and say Create. Now, what the cluster does is it will control those individual lattice points or vertices or CVs or whatever it is, whatever mesh type object it is that you created. And the reason that's cool is because it has its own transform. And so because it has its own transform, we could animate it, or allow the animator to animate it. And so we could create a flat spot on the bottom of this ball. Now let's say we need to adjust this attribute though. We need to adjust which lattice points are being controlled because we didn't do the proper selection the first time. Well, all you have to do is go to Edit Membership Tool, and the lattice points that are currently being controlled by this cluster are selected, and the ones that are not selected. So I could okay, let me back out. Let me select this, go back, edit deformer. Okay. Let me select my cluster, edit deformer, edit membership. Okay, now with that, I can select, oh, why is it doing this to me? Okay, pause, Sundays. Okay, so what I wasn't doing that I had forgotten, because I don't use this very often, is you have to hold down Shift to add to that cluster. So to add a new lattice point to the cluster, you have to press Shift when you click. And then it will add that point to that cluster. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. And I kind of don't want to control these bottom ones, but I would like to control these here. The ones that are halfway up. And so what I can do now is I can do something kind of fun. If I grab this cluster and move it down, then I can go through and I can edit the lattice points, something called the weighting of the lattice points. You're going to see this next editor more than once. So if you go to Window, General Editors, Component Editor, then you're going to want to select the weighted deformers. Actually, and we want to select the cluster for the weighted deformers. Yeah. And it's not showing up because I don't have a component selection. Okay, this does not work on transform nodes. So if I press F8, then I can select these components. And now I actually have attributes in here. And I can, right now, all these attributes, when you have a component that has weights, so like smooth skins have weights, and so do all weighted deformers have weights. That means you can control them in a percentage. So if I set, let me try to frame this so you can see it all. If I set this to 0.5, then it shifts. Okay, so so it shifted this lattice point up. So if I drag select all these, set them to 0.5, for some reason it's not updating, so I'm forcing it to update by making a move and then undoing it. That might be because I'm in the viewport 2.0 actually. Yeah. Okay. So why is this handy? I'm going to undo a few things. And I'm going to move this cluster up. I'm going to go back and make a new selection of lattice points. And now here's their weighting. Now, I probably want to leave these at 1. What if I select this next row of lattice points down and set all these to 0.5? Now, when I grab this cluster and move it down, you see how that might be more purposeful? It's nice and smooth, and by the time it hits the ground, it's perfectly flat from the center point of the ball. Okay, so that could be more useful for us. And then now let's say we wanted it to be able to flatten on the top, we could do that too. Just real quick, just for more practice. Cluster. I hit Y to bring back my Edit Membership tool. Hold down Shift to add in more members. Go to my Selection tool. I'm going to select this new row, because when I add them in, default weighting is to 100% or 1. So I'm going to change these to 0.5. And now, when I move this cluster handle, it can flatten out on the top, or it can flatten out on the bottom. So that might be probably more useful. If I want the entire ball to flatten like a pancake, then we probably would need to approach this slightly different still, where this top row lattice points would be controlled by the cluster 100%. The next row down probably, let's say 75%. The next row down 50%. The next row down 25%. And the last row not at all. So maybe we'll go ahead and just do that real quick. I select this, actually set my cluster, press Y, hold down Shift, add in these remaining lattice points that I want to control. Then they're already, because they're selected, I could go ahead and edit them in here. That's kind of confusing. So I'm going to change my selection to do just one set at a time. So these ones need to be at 100%. This set, we can set to 0.75, and you'd have to play with these.